guys, welcome back to In Case of Econ Struggles. We're going to keep talking about Stata. This is again sort of an intro to Stata course. For those of you who are just getting into Stata, I think these are going to be great videos for you. In the first part of this video series, what we did is we talked about all of these different windows. We sort of got into a couple commands, but not really anything in depth. And so today what I want to do is I want to talk about some commands that you should have in your back pocket. You should just be able to write them, know how they work, be able to use them with any data set. So that's what I'm going to do today. Now, of course, what I'll do is I will put that previous video in the description below. And I'll also put the code we're using for this video in the description below. Now, the first part of this code is what we did last time, sort of with this example data set, reading it in and saving it out. But today we're going to go in a different direction. We're going to use this auto data set, which I've used for a lot of my videos because it is available to everyone, and it's really easy to read in with this sysuse command with this option clear. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is sort of just ways to look at your data. These are commands that don't necessarily go in your do file unless you need them for an assignment to show that you ran them. These are really good just for sort of taking a first look at your data. So for example, this command describe. If I run this command describe, what you're going to see, and I think we talked about this last time, is just the different variable names, whether or not they're a letter, so or a string or a word, or whether they're numbers, so that's int, float, or byte. The display format is not super important to us right now. Any sort of label that they've got on them in terms of the values and any sort of label that the variable has. If I didn't want to write describe, I could write des. And that's going to be true for every Stata command. Every Stata command is going to have a long form and a short form. Doesn't matter which one you use. Maybe as you start out, you're using the longer form, and then as you start to get more comfortable, you start to recognize what the short form is, and you just use the short form. Either way is fine. So we've got our describe. Maybe I'll run this summarize command. This summarize command, honestly, is going to be one of your best friends. This is a really easy way to sort of look at your data, see what's happening, and really use it to check if, say, I generate a new variable, did I generate that new variable correctly without necessarily having to browse and look through all my observations. So again, this is summarize, and if I want to use a shortened version, I can write sum, and that's going to tell me the exact same thing as if I did summarize. Now, one thing that is also going to be really helpful is not just knowing how to use these commands, but knowing how to use these commands on specific variables or on specific observations. So for example, suppose that I didn't want all of these variables. I just wanted, say, miles per gallon and weight, and I only want to look at observations where the miles per gallon is above 20. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the two variables that I want to see, and then this if is going to say, hey, only show me observations with a miles per gallon greater than 20. And if I run that by clicking Control Do or highlighting and clicking this play button up here, you can see that what I'm going to get is a weight and miles per gallon for 36 observations. The minimum miles per gallon is 21, and the max is 41. So this says that I did this correctly. I could also do it with another condition. So I could say if miles per gallon and if foreign is equal to 1. The way I do that is I say if miles per gallon is 20. I have to use the and symbol. If I use this little and word here, it's going to tell me that it doesn't know what this means. It has to be this and, so it's got to be this guy. And with foreign equal to 1, if I say equals 1, it's also not going to work. In Stata, you need to do a double equal for a condition of equal to. Now, if I wanted to say greater than or equal to 20, I could say greater than or equal to 20 like that. And if I run this, what you're going to see is now my foreign equal to 1. I only have 17 observations. I don't have any 20, so that's fine. And this is my weight, mean, standard deviation, min, max. Again, if I want additional details, I could do also comma detail, and that's going to tell you additional percentiles, kurtosis, variance, other sort of statistics about these two variables. And I'll cover exactly how you can figure out these options in a separate video on the help window, but just for now, that's how you can do that. If I don't want to use and, if I want to use or, I'm going to use this vertical bar right here. This vertical bar is the key above your enter symbol most of the time. And again, that's because if I type or like this, Stata is going to yell at me. It's going to say invalid or. I need to use this dot right here. And then what you're going to see is here I have miles per gallon less than 20 or weight greater than 3,000. So this is going to look a little wonky because I have miles per gallon above 20. That's because those observations have a weight greater than 3,000. I have some observations with a weight lower than 3,000, and that's because those observations have a miles per gallon of less than 20. So again, this is going to be harder to see if your code's working correctly, but if you're trying to combine different conditions, this is how you combine them with the OR operator, and this is the AND operator. And again, you got to use these symbols, you can't use the words. Now the second command that I think is really useful for looking at data is this tabulate or this tab command. And what this is going to do, it is going to tell you a count of your observations by a specific variable. And so here I have foreign, so 52 of them have domestic and 22 have foreign for a total observations of 74. These are the percents that I have of both of those. This is the cumulative percent that I have of both of those. Now I can also combine this with other conditions like we had before. So I can tab foreign if miles per gallon is greater than 20, for example, or greater than or equal to 20, or less than 20, or whatever conditions I want here. Now what tab is not good for is if you have a bunch of different possible values for a specific variable. So as an example, suppose that I'm tabbing 2. I want to know how the crosstab works between weight and foreign. If I go ahead and do that, you can see that what it's done is for every possible weight, tell me the number of observations where it's either domestic or foreign. But there are a lot of different values for weight, and this data set is not that big. If I had a larger data set, this table would basically be impossible to read. So what I recommend here is just to do 2 separate sum commands. Sum the weight if foreign is equal to 1, sum foreign if it's equal to 0. If I run both of those, then it's going to be much easier for me to sort of compare the different means of weight, the mins and maxes. It's just going to be an easier thing to read. So summarize and tab are 2 commands that I think are really useful for looking at data. They can be used to sort of build data or sort of add or generate variables, but that's sort of more advanced. And now I want to look at some commands that are useful for either generating variables or changing other variables, basically getting your data ready to analyze in a way that's different from the data that you got when you just read it in. So I'm going to start with this encode variable, and I'm going to start with this foreign since we're already talking about this foreign variable. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to decode it. And what that means is I am going to say, I want these to be the words and not these numbers. So I want it to be a string variable. So I'll go ahead and decode it. And I'm going to generate or gen, again, either way, I'm going to generate this new variable foreign2. And if I look at foreign2, if I click this box here, you'll see that it says str8, which means that now this is a string variable. It's no longer a numerical variable like the original foreign variable was here. So what I can do is I can tab foreign and foreign2. And you can see again that this perfectly matches. So this is a string variable of domestic versus the numeric of 0. This is the string of foreign to the non-string of the numeric of 1 because I use this no label option. If on the other hand, I had a string variable, so like this foreign2, and I wanted to make it back into a numerical variable, I could type encode foreign2, generate my new variable, which is foreign3. So I'll go ahead and do that. And now let me tab them. And if I tab them, you can see what happened is now we got a 1 or a 2 instead of a 0 or 1, which maybe you think that's fine. If that's fine for you, totally valid. It doesn't have to be 0 or 1. If you do want it to be 0 or 1, you can use this recode command, and you can recode 1 to 0 and 2 to 1 like that. And then what we'll do is this is a helpful command to sort of assert or test whether you did something correctly. So if I did this encode and recode correctly, then what should happen is my foreign variable, the one that I started with, should be exactly equal to the foreign3 variable that I made through all this encoding and recoding business. And that should be true for every observation. So I'll go ahead and run that. And because I didn't get any message, I didn't say any contradictions, then I know that I did this correctly and foreign is exactly equal to foreign3. And now we're going to move on to sort of the biggest command that you're going to use. This is a command that you're probably going to be using on a day-to-day basis every time you jump into Stata, and that's called the generate command. This is how we make new variables in Stata. Now if I wanted a really simple example, I could type generate or gen and count equals 1. All that's going to do is that's going to generate a new variable count, which is going to be 1 for every observation. If I want to get a little fancier, what I could do is maybe I want to generate this new variable called weight in tons, because I noticed that weight is weight in pounds. And so I want to generate that variable as weight divided by 2,000 to get the weight in tons, so I could do that. And then if I go ahead and sum weight tons, then you can see that now my mean is 1.5, min is 0.88, max 2.42, which again, I could check and see that this exactly worked, but these sort of summary statistics tell me that I'm probably not too far off. And once again, we really want to use this generate command with conditions most of the time. So maybe, for example, I want a new variable, I want a dummy variable or binary variable that tells me whether or not a car gets over 20 miles per gallon. So I'm going to generate this guy as over 20 miles per gallon is equal to 1 if miles per gallon is over 20. And then I'm just going to say, well, what's going to happen if I run this is it's going to say that I made 38 missing values. Because what Stata has done is said, well, if my miles per gallon is less than or equal to 20, don't do anything. So now I have a missing value for those observations. And maybe I want it to fill it with 0. And so I'll run this command, this replace command, which will say, okay, I know there's missing values. So if it's missing, replace that variable with 0. And it'll tell me 38 real changes made, which is good because I have 38 missings. And so it's going to change 38 from missing to 0. And then what I can do is I can tab over 20 miles per gallon and miles per gallon. Again, what you're going to see is this is not that useful, so maybe I'll just sum miles per gallon if over 20 miles per gallon is equal to 1. And I'll confirm that it's only 1 if the miles per gallon is over 20. So that works really well. Another way, an easier way to generate dummy variables in one line is I'm just going to generate over 20 miles per gallon. That's going to be equal to, and the condition, these parentheses mean condition, so the condition is miles per gallon greater than 20. I can go like that. And if I assert, or if I ask Stata whether or not my over 20 miles per gallon when I generated it in 2 steps is equal or not to the over 20 miles per gallon I generated in 1 step, when I run that together, what you're going to see is that I have no contradictions, so I'm all well and good. And in fact, if I just sum over 20 miles per gallon, what I can do is I can put a little star at the end here, and that'll tell me to sum any variable that starts with over 20 miles per gallon. And you can see that these have the same exact mean and standard deviation because, of course, they're exactly equal to each other. Generate has a lot of power. You can do a lot of different things with the generate command. There are some things that you can't necessarily do with the generate command, and so you need sort of an enhanced generate command, and that's called the egen command. So, for example, maybe I want to know what the max miles per gallon is. Maybe I want a new variable that says max miles per gallon for every observation, and so I can click egen max miles per gallon. Maybe I want the mean as well, so I'll do that. And so maybe if I sum this, what you're going to see is that I'm not going to have any variation in that data. Standard deviation 0. It's always the max or the mean miles per gallon for every single observation. But if that's something I want, say maybe I want to generate some z-scores or something, then maybe I do actually want this mean here for every single observation because it'll make generating that other variable easier. And finally, the last command that I'll talk about that I think will be useful for you is this tostring destring command. So say, for example, I want a miles per gallon as a string rather than a number. I could say tostring miles per gallon generate mpg string. If I looked in my browse command, what you would see is that miles per gallon is sort of this white or this black, and then miles per gallon string is this yellow, or if you're using light mode, it would be red. That tells you that this is a string, just like how the make does. And these white numbers, or on your Stata, the black numbers would tell you that they're numbers and not strings. Say I wanted to go back, I could destring that string variable, and I would generate a new miles per gallon 2. And I'll just check that that worked. I'll check that my initial miles per gallon 2 is equal to my miles per gallon. And you can see that it is, and so we're all well and good. So again, if you're just getting started in Stata, if you know these commands, or at least you have them off to the side, you sort of know how they work, it's just going to make it a lot easier for you to get started in Stata and do some basic data manipulation. So what we're going to do in part 3 is we're going to move on to regressions. I'm going to show you how to run some regression models in Stata, some OLS models, some multivariate models, some logit, some probit, just the basic regressions that I think you'd use on a daily basis. Talk about how to interpret the results and how you can sort of output it if you want to for a specific assignment. But if this video or these videos in general are helping you out, please like and subscribe. See you next time for another case of econ struggles.